We're all seeing a spark. The cat cannot appear that pushes you forward. Sorry. What's up, everybody? It's Keefe. Keefe at GhostCultMag.com. How's it going? Back with another live stream, already off the rails Amtrak. Q is here. What's up, Q? GQ! Having a liquid death. Cheers. Shout out to StreamYard. I feel like I'm having a little bit of a problem with StreamYard right now, but they just launched vertical video for like Instagram and TikTok and stuff. Not TikTok officially, but Instagram. Seems like my gram is not showing. Let's try it one more time. Where is the stream key? Remove and re-add. Okay, we'll try one more time. How's everybody doing tonight? I am doing just fine. Like I said, Soundgarden got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this weekend. Long overdue. And it had me thinking that I should come on here and forecast who else should be in. The list is long. On one hand, Nina's here. What's up, Nina? On one hand, fuck the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. On the other hand, just fun to talk about and debate. So I like doing that. Let's see if I can get Instagram to unfuck itself. But if not, then not. Looks like not. I'm not sure. All right. Oh, well, I'll put this back up on the gram later. But anywho, which also means like I can save recordings to vertical view and then upload them later. That's super cool. Thanks, StreamYard. For the magic of StreamYard, making it happen for Ghost Cult. But anyway, yeah, Soundgarden in the Rock Hall. I know the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a bone of contention for a lot of people. Skull Bashers here. What's up? I'm really bummed that I can't go live on the gram. It's like shitting the bed. But anyway, yeah, I thought I would come on and put some thought onto this. I polled a few friends, and I was like, you know what? Let's do this thing. So I put together a little, as usual, a visual aid, just aids, but visual aids. And, you know, obviously it goes without saying there's a lot of bands that should be in. Does a Hall of Fame even matter? Is it antithetical to rock and metal and punk to even be in a Hall of Fame? I know a lot of people are mad about the other genres of bands that are in the Hall of Fame, but from the very beginning, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a private club, and usually we're not invited. But, you know, when they started to put in heavier bands and, you know, AC/DC was out for a long time, they were eligible for many years, and they got in like 20 years after they were able to get in. So, you know, I think it's inherently interesting to talk about. I think it's very good that Soundgarden got in. I'm proud to say I was an OG Soundgarden fan, even, you know, even from, you know, my earliest days as a fan. I'm glad to say that I was on board very early. I think there's a lot of bands that deserve to be in that haven't been in. What's up, Tim? Another Ghost Cultist passes through. So, yeah, let's just chop it up and talk about it and see what we can do here. This thing is also not working today. We're all seeking a spark. Again, another device letting me down. All right. There we go. Anywho, rock and roll. So, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, let's talk about it. First off, some of the minutiae. If you've been following us and you're already a subscriber, thanks for being here. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Every Monday for the month of November, we are continuing to partner up with the Mojave Experience Music Festival taking place in Joshua Tree in March of 2021, 26, March 20th and 21st. And we are doing a lineup announcement every week where we add 2 more bands to the lineup till the full lineup is revealed. And we have some more integrations coming up with them soon. I'm super stoked on this. Stoner Doom, Stoner Rock, Psychedelic Rock. Also, I do a weekly live stream every Thursday afternoon. Stay tuned for that. I'll be back on my horse this week doing that after missing a week. I rarely miss a week, but I was been really sick for the last week until yesterday. And every day I'm getting a little bit better. So should be hydrating. This is my first liquid death in like 2 weeks, actually, which is weird. Maybe a week and a half, a week and a half, a week and a half. And we ran our interview yesterday, our brand new interview with Max Cavalera. I have interviewed Max Cavalera for all his bands, the most of any artist in my career. Great new interview, great new Soulfly record, Shama, out now on Nuclear Blast. We have another new interview running tomorrow with Evoken, the great blackened avant-garde band, blackened death metal, phenomenal band. And yeah, that's what we do here. Just in case you're feeling tipsy, I will drop the tip menu in the comments. The best way to enjoy this show is usually Instagram, but today it's Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, and maybe one of my grams. One of my grams is gramming. And yeah, if you feel like dropping us a tip or supporting us with a super chat or a super like or whatever they're called on Facebook, on YouTube and Facebook, feel free to do that. Alrighty. And there's our Cash App if you like. So let's talk about it. Obviously, I tried to, hey, crank it up, kitty. I tried to break these down via kind of the most obvious, whatever the most obvious ones were in terms of, obviously predominantly metal, but a little bit of hard rock, post grunge, all the little different subgenres. But realistically, as much as I love death metal is not going to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Some of the metal bands are not going to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to be honest, just because it's just not for the mainstream. It's not big enough for the mainstream consumption. So I tried to think about the criteria that the Rock Hall has. I didn't include any rappers, although there's a whole bunch of rappers I could see being in. Usually 1 or 2 rock bands get in every year, usually one older and one more modern. And there's a few bands that I think I might have, there's a few more I'll kind of give an honorable mention shout out to, but I just didn't focus on. I Am is here. What up? What up? Good to see you. Would like to see some hardcore and punk bands get in. We'll talk about them. I didn't really include any bands from the last 10 or 15 years, so there's not going to be Ghost. There's not going to be Sleep Token. There's Spirit Box fans. I think most popular metalcore is not yet big enough to get in, although I could see eventually some of the metalcore, mainstreamy metalcore bands getting in. And I was very selective about, who I considered for a few avant-garde picks. So let's see what you guys think. Drop a comment who you think has been snubbed and who is not in the Hall of Fame that you feel like should be in that has not been in. Drop a comment, and I will try to shout it out in the comments myself, at least on the accounts that I can check out. Let's see if it'll let me log into my other account, so at least I can watch on at Ghost Cold Keefe on Instagram and YouTube, by the way, which you can now follow at Ghost Cold Keefe 666. So first and foremost, it's it's gotta be Maiden, right? Like Priest got in, Sabbath is in, Maiden has to be in. I know it's sort of a very American rock and roll Hall of Fame, and there's only the classic rock British bands get in. We did see Bad Company get in. Personally, hey, thank you, I Am, for the gift. I think. Personally, I always thought Bad Company was like the Hall of Very Good. And again, this is just for discussion, for funsies. Like I don't take it too seriously. You shouldn't take it too seriously. My word is not law. I don't have a vote in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Grammys. I just love dunking on them and discussing them because people love talking about them. People just love talking about them. So anyway, let's see. One more second. Trying to give that Graham one more chance. Not saying Big E one more chance. No. Crank it up. 23 is back. What's up, sir? Boston, Kansas, Styx, Maiden, Priest is in already, and The Cure, I believe, is in already also. But good call on all those. Boston is, seems like there is many radio hits as they have. They're very underrated. And the same with Styx. I think Styx kind of went too far down the middle of the road for me, but I do appreciate I appreciate the drop in there. They absolutely should have been in by now. And let's see if I can get Instagram to cooperate. Let's see. Doesn't seem to want to help. All right. Anyway, so Maiden is my first kind of obvious Maiden metal band. And like I said, I broke it down by metal, more like hard rock and mainstream grunge rock, and then some punk bands. You tell me who your bands are, what you agree with these or not. And just like with the Sports Hall of Fames, again, it's my opinion is very subjective as a 53-year-old white guy from New York City that lives in California. And I have a minor in musicology and I played in bands for a long time. So I have very strong opinions about who should be and should not be in. I wouldn't have put Bad Company in, but I understand why like boomers think Bad Company is like, one of the most incredible bands. I never did. So Maiden, number one with a bullet, they have to get in. It's kind of ridiculous. I think even though Bruce and Steve Harris have said they would not accept an invitation in, they should absolutely be in. They will take it if they get invited. If they get nominated, they're going to be grateful and probably toe the line like everyone does. Next up, Soundgarden is in. Why not Alice in Chains? Alice in Chains' first year of eligibility. You have to be a band for 25 years and have a output for 25 years. And I feel like Alice in Chains should be in next year. Like they absolutely need to be in. And I think they've only become, they got their career kind of abruptly interrupted because of drugs and other issues in the band, not just Lane Staley and Mike Starr, but everybody in the band was fucked up on something. And it's not fair to just say it's Lane's fault that the band, their meteoric rise was halted. Would have been really interesting to see if they had come back in like 98 or 99 with like another full-length album, what that would have done after the Unplugged and everything. Too bad they couldn't. But Alice in Chains just boggles the mind. They're better than some other bands that I'm sure other people feel like should be in to me. And they're still out and they're still vital all these years later. And they did get a second act, which most people don't get a second act. Also, Dio. Ozzy getting in as a solo artist made me feel like Dio absolutely needs to be in. Obviously, he did not get inducted with Black Sabbath, which kind of sucks and is stupid. Because certainly they got an extension of their early career because of Dio into the 80s and 90s. That kept them as, huge and relevant as they had to be. So I feel like Dio, maybe it's not a foregone conclusion, but if you add up his whole career, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Dio solo, Heaven and Hell later, basically Black Sabbath again with Dio, you really can't complain that, you really can't argue that it's not worthy, that somehow they don't rate, because I think they do rate. I think they do. So there's that. Dio for sure. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not. Also, Pantera. I think the Pantera reunion, especially with the Goodwill. I know we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of Philip's very unfortunate, racist dumb shit, but he's kept it quiet for a decade. I think he's going to have poised to have a huge year next year with Pantera and Down with new releases and maybe some Scour touring in there touring in there also. So, maybe Pantera should be in it. Certainly would be, valuable to get the brothers the nod. They deserve it. They're not here anymore. I think like bands ought to get awarded in their lifetime while they're still here. Maybe Pantera is perhaps too controversial, but I can see it. I don't see that many more We're about to talk about a whole bunch of strictly metal bands, and I don't know that how many of them will get in my lifetime, but in terms of worthiness for the Rock Hall, I think Pantera has album sales, they have popularity, they've gotten a new lease on life. I think they'll probably put out a live album, maybe of that little club show they did. I think that would be really fun. Maybe for a record store day in 2026, that would be something I would want to buy. And yeah. Also, Linkin Park, I think, especially again, another band is kind of a very similar situation. Members passed away, Chester is gone. They're humongous. They just did a world tour of arenas, sold out pretty much every city in the world. And I do see a situation where they get in. There's a lot of probably a big sympathy vote, not to mention that a lot of the bands that are now coming of age and getting in were peers of Linkin Park. And I think Linkin Park is kind of, linked to Soundgarden because of Chester and Chris's relationship. And now that Soundgarden is in, I think you could see Linkin Park get in the next few years. This would have been their first year of eligibility this year. Also, I think, while we're mentioning Soundgarden one more time, I do think it's very possible and probable that Chris Cornell will get in as a solo artist at some point also. Even though I think some of those solo albums are me, but if you count Chris Cornell came from Soundgarden, he went to Audioslave, and then he had kind of a big solo career. James Bond theme song, Grammy Awards. I think, that goes a long way with the mainstream voters of the Hall. Fucking Houston Life, what's up? Hugh Life, I believe. So Linkin Park, definitely possible. Also Faith No More. I think we got hit with the news recently as Roddy Bottum is doing his book tour for his new book, The Royal We, his memoir, that Faith No More is probably unlikely to ever return. That's his opinion. He is one of the founding key members of the band. It just makes sense. Patton doesn't seem to want to have anything to do with them, won't even contact them or talk to them, which sucks. And he's been, suddenly busy with Bungle and the Avett Brothers now. So I think it's very possible that Faith No More is never coming back. I think they're hugely influential. I know that the Hall of Fame has different categories of how they put people in. And I think fuck that. It should just be you're in or you're not. Just like the Sports Hall of Fame. You're in or you're not in. All of very good Hall of Fame. There's a big line. It's not a fine line. It's a huge line, actually, to me. So yeah, that's just me. Scott Jeffrey, what up? Theodore is here. Norm Wilson is here. So I think Faith No More absolutely needs to be in. They influenced tons of bands. They were vital. They came back. They had a second act and reunited. They did 10 years as a reunion act. The pandemic screwed them. Yeah, he's just on his own trip. And you never know what behind the scenes things are going on with them. You really have no way of knowing what the dynamics of the band were. Tool is not yet eligible for the Rock Hall. I think next year is their first year of eligibility. They are one of the most popular bands. They are more popular now than they have ever been. I keep thinking that they're going to wind it down and wrap it up and go back and work on a new album, but they continue to get bags of money thrown at them for the tours. So while that's possible, they're going to keep doing it as long as it's motivating and interesting and fun to them. Next year is the 30th anniversary of Enema. I don't think they would do anything with that, sentimentally or let's celebrate that album by playing most of it. I don't think that's a thing for Tool at all, especially because they're very high on new music they made with Fear Inoculum and things like that, and Lateralis, which they consider more the truer form of the band now. 10,000 Days, Lateralis, and Fear Inoculum is the band that Tool is today versus Enema and earlier Undertow. But Tool is hugely popular. Absolutely very few bands, I say this all the time, very few bands fall into the category of, artistically exceptional and popular. It's very rare. Zeppelin was one. Pink Floyd was one. Tool is one. Alice in Chains is one. They didn't quite get the popularity they could have. So I feel like Tool is a band of the modern bands that are metal-ish adjacent. They would get in. And also, I think there's probably some progressive rock nerd people voting for the Hall that love the prog rock bands. And even though a lot of prog rock bands aren't in, I can see Tool getting in. And I am biased. Tool is one of my favorite bands, but System of a Down, boy, System of a Down is again similar to Tool. You know, comes from a little bit after the Tool and Rage Against the Machine era. Rage is in, Tool maybe next. System, I think, would be the first one of those bands, along with Linkin Park, to get in. They're just enormous now. They're bigger now than they have ever been. I think this test run for stadiums in America is a preliminary thing that they did to see if they could book a whole stadium tour. They clearly can. They're headlining Sick New World. They're headlining arenas in Europe. Pretty damn big. I think they would get in. Again, it'd be questionable whether they would get in because maybe they're too weird or they're too extreme, or they're, you know, what are they going to say when they get the microphone? You know, Serge is brilliant. Hey, Badger's here. What's up, Mark? How are you today? We're talking about bands, the next bunch of bands to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, from metal, hard rock, alternative rock, and punk. If you've got some picks that should be in, we've already mentioned that Maiden, Alice in Chains, Faith No More, all absolutely need to be in. Tool would be in on their next chance of eligibility, and System of a Down and Linkin Park are probably right in the queue, as my British friends say, next. They got next. Who do you got? Who do you got next? Okay, now for some more heavier bands. Some comments in this live stream were filtered to protect the community's experience. Somebody is shitting the bed in the comments. Keep it clean, folks, and tell me what you think. Drop a comment with your bands. Who's your favorite band that's not in the Hall of Fame? Slayer. Hard to argue a more influential metal band beside Black Sabbath, Metallica, than Slayer. Could Slayer get in singing about Nazis and serial killers? I don't know. Should they be in some Hall of Fame? They are in the Metal Hall of Fame, which I don't know if you know that there is a Metal Hall of Fame, but there is one. Slayer absolutely should be in some kind of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They've had a tremendous second act. You know, it's unfortunate that Jeff died young. I don't think they care particularly about being in a Hall of Fame. They have always been an outsider band, even for one of the biggest bands. They are also arguably, Manowar, dude, I am not a fan. And no, they shouldn't be in. I think Manowar is kind of crappy. Manowar is like the, I don't have Crew on this list, and I'll talk about why in a minute. I don't think Manowar is good enough. And I love Ross the Boss, and I respect Manowar fans, and I understand why people love those records, but I just feel like they are too corny to be taken seriously as a real interesting band. That's just me. I never liked them. I also didn't like Saxon, and then I kind of went back and did my homework, and I was like, oh, Saxon was always really good. Why did all my favorite bands make fun of them? But I don't know. So Slayer, I'm not 100% sure that they are a lock, but they should be in some kind of theoretical Rock and Roll Hall of Fame someday. Speaking of rockers, unapologetic rockers, this is one of my favorite photos I have ever taken. This is Lemmy of Motorhead. I'm sorry for y'all on TikTok cannot appreciate this. Black Clad Demon is now watching, and Aris is watching. What's up? So I think there's a lot of sentiment to put Motorhead in the Hall of Fame based on rep. They did not have album sales. They did not. Everyone agrees that Lemmy and Motorhead are hugely influential. And I think if you have people like Tom Morello and Dave Grohl in the Hall of Fame stumping for Lemmy every year to get nominated, I think if they get nominated, they're going to get in. Although I was pretty sure that Oasis was a lock, and I'll talk about them in a minute. Let them in, I guess. Motorhead kind of should be in. They set the template for a lot of things. They were pre-thrash before thrash. I always say there's a handful of bands that punkers and metalheads agree on, and Motorhead is one of those bands, along with Ramones, Misfits, and Suicidal. That's the list. I know some people love Social Distortion. I think they also probably could get in, but I don't like them, so I didn't put them in. Later in the spoiler alert, I don't have Social D on this list, and I'll tell you now why I don't have Motley Crue. I think Motley Crue, first of all, like by design, Motley Crue does not want to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure they would like to be in the Hall of Fame. I think they are, they have moments of brilliance, but the reality is the vast majority of Motley Crue's career at the kindest is uneven and mostly not good. They have 3 really excellent albums And even those albums are like 7s and 8s. And I love Shout at the Devil and I love Dr. Feelgood, but realistically, not. Hey, Robots and Monsters pass by. What's up, y'all? And Wendy Lou. Hi, Wendy Lou. Yeah, I think Motley Crue is not a great band. Vince has always been a terrible singer, not just now, always been a bad singer. And I think the bullshit with them kind of overshadows any of the good, but that's me. Would they get in? Would I be shocked? No. Should they be in? They're Hall of Very Good at best. They're not a Hall of Fame band. Again, Hall of GNR. I think GNR is in, right? I assume they were. I did do some research on this. Clickety clack, my least favorite thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, 2 years ago. That's right. I think Guns N' Roses. Yeah, I had Dio at the very top, actually, right after Maiden. I think Dio, Black Clad Demon, GNR is in. I think Dio absolutely should be in, especially when you consider the sum of everything, and especially because Ozzy got in. Ozzy got in as a solo artist, so I mean, how can Dio not be in as a solo artist? Hugh says Vince is horrible. He is horrible. He was always horrible. He was always horrible. And maybe with Manowar, Black Clad Demon, Appetite for Destruction is one of the greatest albums ever, man, from the 80s. What are you talking about, pal? I mean, if you don't like them and you hate Axl and you just hate them, that's fair. But like to just say it's trash when it's like universally respected and loved, I don't know. I also hate bands that people like. I hate Journey. I think Journey sucks. I never liked them. I understand why. They have great players. They have catchy songs that have pervaded the fucking rock, every fucking drunk white girl in a bar I've ever met. The minute that piano intro comes in, they fucking go on and on. So like, eggs be dropping. I don't like Journey. I understand why they're hugely popular. Not a band for me. Their retirement is a welcome thing for me. Steve, pre-Steve Perry Journey, dude. Greg Raleigh is incredible. Steve is an incredible singer. I don't like Journey. I hate Journey. Steve's got a great voice, incredible voice. But like, I just fuck them. Fuck Jonathan Cain. I feel terrible for Arnel Pineda. Imagine having to be in a band with those two fucking guys. Neil is probably okay, but imagine the drama of the suing each other and never fucking talking and coming on stage and coming off stage, and you can't fucking give a pound and you can't fucking have a beer with the guy, and it's just misery. Poor Arnel, right? Arnel didn't ask for any of this. He just came out of obscurity to take Steve's place, Well, of course they were Santana-esque. Journey was Santana's backing band, as Mark points out. And I know it's a joke, bro. Like, I'm talking about it because it's good for conversation. The Metal Hall of Fame is not bad, but I just feel like the Metal Hall of Fame is also kind of too narrow focused. So the modern bands are not going to get any dap from them at all. But we'll see. Megadeth is another band of the metal, along the metal spectrum. Perry had some bullshit to say about Van Halen. Yes, he did. Hey, VW Blue Sky, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. I figured Styx would have made it in by now. Me too. And Kansas, we talked about earlier, really is a fucking terrible oversight, especially like Floyd, Genesis are all in, and somehow Rush is in. ELP is not in, and Kansas and Styx are not in. Fucking weird. But Megadeth. Man, I'm bummed about the end of Megadeth. I'm bummed about the end of Yes, very narrow, Black Clad Demon. And I'm talking about the Metal Hall of Fame. And no diss to them. I appreciate that they're a thing. And they've put in a bunch of people I love, a bunch of bands I love and respect, and industry people, and a lot of things that the Rock Hall will not do. But, Megadeth, I know Dave, it would be like a validation of his whole life to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He has an unfuckwithable band. He's got a couple of bad albums like everybody else. Last Megadeth record, based on when I heard the first song, thought it was good. Dirk has come into the band and really transformed them into, back to that 80s, early 90s prog thrash talent that they've always kind of had. And, I just feel like maybe Megadeth, the drawing line for a lot of people is the vocals. and they're just not catchy enough, but they have hits. They have Grammy wins. Dave has done soundtrack stuff. He's well liked, at least like respected, not liked, but respected. Don't know about Megadeth getting in. And along the same lines, as much as it pains me to say, I love fucking Anthrax. Anthrax is one of my favorite thrash bands ever. I'm from the Bronx, New York, as is, two people in Anthrax, Charlie and Frankie. And Anthrax, I think, could be considered an influence. They crossed over punk and hardcore. They were doing things nobody else was doing. They had platinum singles in thrash, at least one, and then a second one that was kind of a novelty song, right? Like I'm the Man I Love, but it's a novelty song, right? But they, Bring the Noise. They had a platinum album. The only second band to have a platinum album in thrash after Metallica is Sound of White Noise, and it's a shame that current Anthrax doesn't really celebrate that stuff. I really would love to get down and see John Bush do some of that stuff on tour. Maybe he'll expand that tour next year. I love Anthrax, and they absolutely are a huge influence, and maybe even the most successful thrash metal band after Metallica in terms of record sales and, clout. That's legit, but I just don't know if they can get it. But I would love to see it. It would make my whole life. When I went to the Big Four at Yankee Stadium with my best friend Curtis in 2011, next year's the 15th anniversary of that show, Anthrax got the key to the city from the Bronx, only happened to a handful of artists. BW Blue Sky says, Iron Maiden, some real good albums. Love to see you make it. Yeah, I had Maiden number 1 at the top of this list for metal. Maiden needs to be in. Priest is in. Maiden needs to be in. Hey, John, what's up? No worries, bro. I've been doing these live streams kind of a little impromptu without much promotion, but thanks for being here. And I owe you a text message or something, bro, or DM, because you asked me a question when I saw you in the shop last. So yeah, I'd love to see. I'm talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Soundgarden gets in. Who will be next from rock, metal, and punk, if any? We know it's usually down to one every year of the modern last 25, 30 years of artists. So who should get in? And I talked about Maiden, and I talked about Alice in Chains and Faith No More and Dio. But if anybody coming in, we've had some really great stuff here about Styx and Kansas and Maiden all need to be in. But if you've got anybody, John, yep, Maiden, Alice in Chains. Bryan Adams is interesting, he does have a ton of fucking hits as a hard rock artist. I don't know if he's just so mainstream that people don't think about him. And Boston has come up on TikTok. Thank you, John. Yeah, so John says Maiden, Chains, and Bryan Adams. Very interesting. And I thought Bryan Adams was great at the Rock Hall, by the way. He did a great job. He's got a great voice. He's really kind of come into his elder statesman hero era, right? I think it's pretty great. And Boston is very underrated. I don't know if they will ever break through to get in, because they really didn't have a life much after the heyday. So of some more modern bands, Billy Idol, I love Billy Idol. I feel like Billy Idol is the Hall of Very Good. He's got a handful of banger hits. He's got quite a few good albums. I think he never really had that level of excellence over a long period of time. And I think, again, the thing is, my criteria for the Music Hall of Fames is the same as the criteria for the Sports Hall of Fames. You're a lock, you're in, absolutely in, or absolutely not in. There's not a let me make a case. Fuck Todd Rundgren. I'm sorry, Bad Company does not deserve to be in. Sheryl Crow is not a Hall of Fame artist. She's a pop artist. She's a good writer of songs. She should not be in the Hall of Fame. Get fucked. Performers tend to make it the next year. That is true. That is true. And I do know that about Billy Idol, and he is loved, and he is getting up there in years. And I did say earlier in the broadcast here that I want to see artists get in while they're alive. Ozzy getting in while he was alive, and they led the In Memoriam with the Ozzy recap of his life. That meant a lot to me. I know the Grammys get shit on for missing people, and I didn't see if Ace was included in Kiss. But you're in or you're not. So who is this? One of the most punchable faces in all of music is M. Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold. Now, I happen to be a fan, and I was a fan of their metalcore stuff, and you will not see, we're not at the 25, Ace was mentioned. Thank you, John. We're not quite at the 25-year mark for a lot of metalcore bands, and I don't know if they are mainstream enough to make it. But Avenged Sevenfold also similar to Linkin Park, similar to Pantera, similar to these bands, is now headlining arenas worldwide. Could Avenged Sevenfold get in? They had a huge run in the MTV era. They were one of the first big bands on streaming. And they've made some mistakes. They took some very weird left turns. I love their last album, Life is But a Dream. Very avant-garde and weird to a lot of people. Super talented. The screamy stuff most people won't love, but their fan base is fucking die hard as they come, to quote Jamie Josta of Hatebreed. So could Avenged Sevenfold get in eventually? Probably not now. They're going to come up in a few years. As I mentioned, Tool is a band that's not quite eligible yet. Avenged Sevenfold is not quite eligible yet. If Maiden can't get in, no way. Avenged Sevenfold. I agree. Avenged Sevenfold borrowing their whole guitar ethos from Iron Maiden. I agree. But I think Maiden will get in. And I said, I don't know, right before you joined, John, I think if Maiden gets nominated, they will humble up and say thank you, and they'll get in. They're not going to be like, fuck you, I don't want to be in. It's just not how it's done. I think the only artist that ever successfully turned down the Hall of Fame, I think, was Garth Brooks. And what's her name? I can't remember right now. Gary Collingwood says Satan. Well, I mean, Satan should be in the Hall of Fame for life, for everything. Not Satan the band. Maybe Satan the band. I don't know. No, not Satan the band. All right. Other bands that have like the merits to get in but probably won't get in, Melvins. So, you know, it's pretty well agreed that like Nirvana copied Melvins and Hole, basically beat for beat, note for note, song for song in some cases. Melvins are incredible. They have a prolific, incredible career. They continue to put out multiple albums. They have 3 albums out this year. They continue to tour all over the world every year. Dale Crover had his whole neck and back rebuilt in the last year. And they just don't stop. They just don't stop. Melvin's hugely influential. Would be nice to see them get in. I think they don't care at all about this. Buzz does not care. This is a great photo of Buzz. I'm trying to remember who shot this picture. Melvin should be in, but they probably won't be in. I think this is Kim Hansen for Ghost Cult shot this recently. It's the Double Drummers. Or yeah, it's someone shot this for us recently. Sex Pistols and Dire Straits did not show up for their inductions. Well, I'm going to tell you what. Sex Pistols do not, like, if you want to credit the Sex Pistols for punk, like you credit the Ramones, even though they're not quite purely punk, sure. Sex Pistols also were not a good band. They have one good album, and that's their legacy. They should not really be a Hall of Fame band. They should have been an influence. I always feel like Dire Straits is one of the most overrated bad bands of all time. Not a good vocalist, great guitar player, great at soundtracks. They have a couple of good albums. Replacements, yes. And you know what? I didn't have any photos of Replacements. Let me talk about them when I get to the alternative rock in another minute, because I have thoughts. So of the last 30 years, now we're going to talk. We talked about some thrash bands. We talked about some sludge bands. Korn. If Faith No More gets in, I can see Korn getting in. Technically, Korn, I think they have never been nominated. And it would be really interesting to see. And again, if Linkin Park and System of a Down get in, can Korn be far behind, if not in front of one of them, or beating them both to the punch in terms of being, you know, first out of the gate with that genre influence? Korn is also about as popular as they have ever been. And I think it would be very interesting to see them get in. That's my 2 cents. My 2 cents is free. A lot of people watching on the Tick of the Talk. I appreciate all of y'all. Also, Deftones. Deftones, big as ever. New album is probably one of my favorite albums of the year. Could be album of the year across the board. Nominated for Grammys. Private Music's incredible. Chino wrote most of the riffs because Steph was dealing with his health issues. Deftones, influential, long-running, no real bad albums, hit songs, Grammy Awards, all the things that tick the boxes for the BS Hall of Fame. I could definitely see Deftones getting in the next few years. They are way eligible. They founded as a band in '89, so this is their 30th year with a recording out. This year was the anniversary of Adrenaline, and I could see them getting in the next few years. Slipknot, arguably one of the biggest bands in the world, and they have been a lot longer than these other bands. I think there's a kind of a thing going on in the concert industry where they're trying to test the waters and see if some of these mid-level successful record sales and streaming bands can headline arenas. We know that Slipknot has their own festival, their own lifestyle website that's fucking bigger than 3 ghost cults. Honestly, got to be honest. They're huge. Their fan base is huge. Whenever they drop new merch, people buy them up. They put on new bands that get successful. Knock Loose is a very, is part of their success is due to getting co-signed by Slipknot and Knotfests. Slipknot is one of the most consistent headline bands in the world. They headline arenas and huge festivals all over the world. So I feel like Slipknot, as heavy and extreme and sort of dark as they are, have enough commercial catchy ability to make it into the Hall of Fame. Very possible, especially, again, as some of these other bands get in, they're all going to vote for Korn and Deftones and Slipknot. Now to some more extreme bands, and I didn't really jump them all in here, but this kind of goes back into my my back to the beginning recap. So Lamb of God, probably not there yet, right? They are 25, 26 years as a band, 27 years as a band. Burn the Priest officially had their release, I think, in 99 to 99, 98, 99, and then New American Gospel is 25 years old this year. So Lamb of God, hugely popular, hugely influential, kind of brought back that Pantera groove, with Pantera coming back out and probably getting in at some point. I could see Lamb of God being a band like Gojira and Lamb of God, and I think here's Gojira. Great shot here from Bloodstock Open Air this summer by our own Bill Maudsley in the UK. Incredible. Gojira still much bigger in Europe than America, but big. And then, Mastodon with Brent Hines passing away this summer, and a new, probable new Mastodon record next year we know about. I think it'd be fun to see Mastodon get in. Again, prog rock bands do seem to get overlooked, and so some of the prog thing, and that's why, I don't have Opeth on here as much as Opeth is one of my top 10 bands. I just think some of the bands that are too far flung with an all, an all over history are probably not going to get in. And okay, so now on to some more classic artists, classic rock and alternative rock and mainstream rock. The most glaring omission of the classic rock era of bands pre-heavy metal has to be Thin Lizzy. Has to be Thin Lizzy. They are not in the Hall of Fame. I know they didn't have as long a career, but hella influential. I think it goes, if Metallica is the most popular, rock and a band that transcended metal into rock ever, statistically, financially, and one of their biggest hit songs is a cover of Whiskey in the Jar, and they have to let people know it's not their song. Philo, man, he needs to be in. They need to be in the Hall of Fame, especially those that 73 to 83. I know that they had their ups and downs. I know they didn't get to break through in America, and that's why. But I know they just did the deal with Primary Wave to take over their royalties and try to administer their music into more television and films. I'm hoping it's not just Jailbreak, Whiskey in the Jar, and excuse me, as I'm still getting over my cold, mostly Whiskey in the Jar, Boys Are Back in Town, Cowboy Song, Emerald, which has been covered by Mastodon, by the way. Lizzy, much bigger in Europe, and the Hall is extremely U.S. biased. I agree. I feel like the Bad Company induction this year is because it's been so U.S. leaning. And realistically, except for classic rock and R&B, the U.S. doesn't have a lot of great rock bands. We had great rock architects and great historical rock artists. But we don't have Beatles, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, We don't. So Lizzy needs to be in. They absolutely need to be in. I'll wait for you to tell me I'm wrong. So Genesis is in the Hall of Fame, and I could not find another photo of Phil to use. I think Phil Collins, I know he's more pop and mainstream as a solo artist, but he really doesn't get enough credit as a solo artist somehow. Even though he's one of the biggest selling record artists of all time by himself, I feel like Phil Collins deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as a solo artist, and I'd like to see him get it. I know he's in bad health. He stopped touring. I'd love to see him get it in his lifetime, just like Ozzy. So I hope there will be like a sympathy thing. He shouldn't have to get a sympathy thing because he is incredible. Phil Collins' whole career, aside from Genesis, running the gamut of everything, really needs to get rewarded. I think it would be sweet. It'd be great. We'd love to see some all-star artists take a shot at Phil Collins' songs. He has tons of fucking songs, tons of huge songs. And he did a lot of, again, I talked about this earlier before you joined, John, that there's this kind of thing that I talk about always in music that I learned in music school, which is there's very few artists that get to be like extremely artistically high valued and superstar famous and popular. And Phil is one of them. Phil, I know Tarzan sucks, and I know South Park made fun of him. Fuck that. Fuck them and fuck that. I know Tarzan sucks. But like everything else he ever did is fucking hard to fuck with. That's all I'm going to say. He's great. And I don't mean hard to fuck with like, I can't fuck with this. I mean like unfuckwithable. Bjork, not an artist we talk about enough here at Ghost Cult, but, it's my show, and I'll fucking do what I want on my show. Bjork is incredible. Sugar Cube's really an unknown band. But Bjork's career, huge record sales. She did one tour in the last few years, and she headlined arenas all over the world. She did the Chase Center here in San Francisco, for crying out loud. Like, she's huge and incredible and taking artistic risks and still catchy and popular. I'd love to see Bjork get it. John says, my kid's favorite soundtrack growing up was Brother Bear. Nice. Listen to that more than any Genesis album, and I fucking love Genesis. Bro, I fucking love Genesis. Q says, yep, Phil Collins, definitely. You were right. Long time ago. For real. Stone Temple Pilots. Now we're going to get into some post-grunge. Okay, so Soundgarden's in. Pearl Jam is in. Nirvana's in. Alice in Chains gotta be next. Stone Temple Pilots also, where the fuck you at? Why are you not out? They are well overdue. 33 years, 34, 35 years as a band, basically. And out since 92 when Core came out. And I know it's tough for them, and they also, similar to Chains, didn't get the long runway that Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Chains did, and maybe not Soundgarden, and certainly not Nirvana, obviously. But just like odd to me that Stone Temple Pilots has not even been nominated. What the fuck? Just not even nominated. And they also had Chester Bennington as the lead singer at one point too, which is wild. STP has to be in, and probably soon. Smashing Pumpkins. Now, I'm not the biggest Pumpkins fan, but I will say as I get older and I get softer in my old age, I feel like Pumpkins are getting a lot of love. They had a huge tour this year. The addition of Kiki Wango to the band is amazing. As a lead guitarist, I know James is kind of off the road, raising his family, and not really doing a perfect circle either, honestly. This year's the 30th anniversary of Melancholy. Those first 3 or 4 Pumpkins records are coming up soon, John. I'm doing Punk last. The first 3 or 4 Pumpkins records are fucking great. And then, mixed bag. My girlfriend Melissa's not here. She loves to say that. Billy, you were goth for like 5 minutes. You would not speak for the goths. You are not representative of all goth people. So anyway, Pumpkins probably going to get in the next. I could see Pumpkins leapfrogging Alice in Chains and STP to get in. I don't agree with that, but I can see it. They are popular. They're popular. They're loved. I think Billy has never been a very good singer. I think he's a great songwriter. I've been rather enjoying his interview series. It's not like I was going to get to interview those people anyway, so I'm not jealous. Oh, Melissa's here. Awesome. Your time is coming, my dear, because there's some bands you recommend that are coming up. Whoever I could find photos for. I love my girlfriend. She's brilliant. Pumpkins, probably going to get in. Billy, you are not goth, but you will probably get in the Hall of Fame. And he will be, he'll brag about it. Hole, I know this is controversial. Hole not only should have been in a long time ago, they should be in before every one of these bands that I've mentioned except Dio, Maiden, Alice in Chains, and Faith No More. They need to be in. literally copy and paste Nirvana is Hole. I'll do an analysis on this sooner or later, and I will have my day. I will die on this hill. You may not like her as a person. Courtney Love is a genius songwriter. And everything Nirvana learned, they stole from Melvins and Hole. Courtney fucking rules, and I will not hear any slander of her on my channel. No, if you didn't like her personally, I can understand it. She did not kill Kurt Cobain, by the way. Kurt killed himself, just like Epstein. All right. No, Epstein didn't kill himself. Anyway, release the Epstein files. Oasis. So I fucking don't like these guys, but you can't fucking deny the first few Oasis records are brilliant. This tour this year proves that even in two mostly unlikable, completely unlikable, feckless fucking asswipes who are huge rock star buttholes can sell out a huge fucking thing. Well, you know what, John? I respect that. Hole is very good, but not a Hall of Fame. Well, I would say this. I would put Hole in before Sheryl Crow. I would have put Hole in before Todd Rundgren, and I would have put Hole in before Bad Company, but I understand that. Oasis, definitely maybe. I see what you did there. Dude, I love you so much for that. Definitely maybe. They're going to get in. They're going to get in. I thought they were snubbed this year, to be honest with you. I would have put them in instead of Bad Company. Oasis deserves it. Yeah, but they're fucking such pieces of shit. I just fuck me. They're so, especially the younger brother. The older brother apparently not good either. I like him though. I prefer him. I wish he sang all the songs. I like when he just sang all the songs. The best unplugged for like Oasis's unplugged is the most petty shit ever, where the younger brother sat, I got a sore throat, I can't sing tonight, and then he sat heckling the band the whole night with his wife at the time, Patsy Kensit. Anyhow, fuck. Cranberries. So here's another 90s alternative rock. Incredible loss, incredible talent. Dolores O'Riordan, just rest in power. Please take care of your mental health and check yourselves. And please don't do drugs. And I'm deeply saddened that she's not around anymore. Cranberries are criminally underrated. They have so many, first of all, commercially huge, but also deep albums with great discographies. John says, crazy that they sell out stadiums, but Noel toured solo. He had like 5. Yeah, well, they built the hype on that tour. And then they were like, this is all we're going to do. Oh, wait, we're going to announce 25 more shows. It's kind of shitty. I know that Rush fans are really mad about the Rush situation, and it's very similar. Cranberries, I think it's much more than Zombie and Linger. They should be in. They're much more than a hits band. Their Unplugged just came out. That is right. I should try to get that. Queens of the Stone Age. Kind of critics' darlings. Thank you, Melissa. Kind of, yeah, I bet Rush got you, man. I understand. I'm going to wait and see on Rush. We'll see where I'm at in May if I really want to go to LA and do that. But Queens of the Stone Age, I feel like a lot of those stoner rock bands are just not popular enough to get noticed. And Josh has, even though he's also not a great person, apparently, I know he's been through a lot with the cancer, but like, I feel like Josh has enough of that cool cachet with the voting types that would put Queens of the Stone Age in. I think also Melissa and I were talking about this offline that, you know, would like Screaming Trees and Mark Lanigan to have gotten mentioned by the Soundgarden guys because they are friends with them. Josh is a genius. I agree. Just not a great husband or father, apparently. I don't know. But I feel like if Queens gets in, that's like Mark getting in. And that's how Mark can get in the Hall of Fame. So selfishly, I wouldn't be mad if Queens gets in. I think they're just on the borderline of, they have the greatness, they have the records, they have the longevity. They could have been in already by this time. Late 90s, right, is the first Queens record. Hold on one second. Let's see. Yeah, Mark, man. Mark brought us together. Pixies. Here's another band from the, 80s, alternative rock 90s. Definitely could have been eligible years ago, right? Like 10, 15 years ago they were eligible. This is the most latest lineup of Pixies, but clearly I think Pixies is a band that kind of put the blueprint down for alternative rock, along with REM, who I don't think are in. And maybe they don't want to be in. I don't remember if they're in or not. But Pixies absolutely should be in. The first 4 to 5 Pixies records are just fucking classics. And I always feel like Breeders and Tim and Kelly Deal and Frank Black and Black Francis and all these things are a little bit less than Pixies, even though I love some of those projects. And I'm very happy for Breeders. And I was very happy to see Breeders again for the second time at Riot Fest in 2023. Don't know if you have them on the list. INXS needs to be considered. Absolutely. I don't have them on the list, but I would like to see them. I know that they did some touring a couple of years ago with Terrence Trent D'Arby as their singer. And then they would do kind of like a mid-set Terrence Trent D'Arby solo stuff with INXS and an INXS, and he was doing the big INXS hits. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Like, I don't know why that didn't work out more to do like a US tour. But again, they were never, as huge as they were, they kind of had their moment and they faded. I believe Hutchins should be in. Melissa says Pixies should be in. REM is in, first year eligible. Nice. Thank you for reminding me. INXS don't get enough due. Yeah, I love them. L7. This is maybe a controversial pick. And we're starting to get into now maybe, a little, not enough female artists, not enough punk female artist representation. L7, killer band, great discography, had a second act, better now than they ever were because they were fucked up on drugs and alcohol back in the day. I absolutely love this fucking band. I paid to go see them when I could have got in free because I wanted to buy a ticket to support them. I love them endlessly. And I really I love L7. They need to be in. I know Omar Cordy took this photo at the Pomona No Values Festival. Yeah, I have Bikini Kill also coming up soon, Melissa, in the punk section. We'll talk about them at length. But L7, very underrated, kind of needs to be in. I know people talk about, there are other 7 Year Bitch and the Gits and some other Riot Girl type bands, but I think only whole L7 and Bikini Kill are the exceptional Hall of Fame level bands. That's just me. There are many great bands. Babes in Toyland is also pretty great. Living Color. How can Living Color continue to be so underrated? They were so fire out of the gate in their career. They are as good now as they have ever been. I'm sure people. So their Tiny Desk concert is one of the most watched Tiny Desk concerts of the year from NPR. So I really would I love Living Color. I have loved them. Not only one of my first favorite bands with 2 of my childhood best friends, my late friend Damian Danville, and I love them, as well as Curtis Dunlap from Ghost Cult. Living Color, man. I mean, loved by the critics. Just maybe not like mainstream, super huge, but like, what's the wrestling theme that has Cult of Personality, right? Like, there's a wrestler that uses Cult of Personality now, and I think what Living Color had to do was re-record it to get all the modern royalties in line. So they're just making every time that shit is used in a highlight reel, in a social media, on streaming, that version is what's actually kicking money into their pockets. Living Color is great. CM Punk, thank you, John. I'm really not the wrestling guy I was growing up. Agreed, Living Color totally needs to be in, but maybe not breakthrough big enough, kind of like Queens. All the other boxes are ticked except mainstream love, but I think Living Color is phenomenal. Sublime, controversial. Some people consider Sublime a very mid band, a band for average white guys that love weed and jerking off and playing Xbox. But I will tell you that Sublime has tons of bangers, also didn't get the runway. Sublime with Rome is like it ever happened now with the kid in the band. I've seen them twice now with the junior Jacob Noel, and he is incredible. Look at him. He looks just like his dad. He plays fucking guitar. He actually does stuff that his dad could not and did not do, which is like he's a very active frontman running around. Sublime is headlining festivals, big pop and rock festivals, and I'd love to see them get in. They certainly have all the other, again, the boxes tick for them, at least in my book. And I saw them and I thought, like, wow, this is like the Sublime I remember. Zoe just found a shirt she hasn't seen in a while. What shirt is that? So do tell. We're talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and future bands to get in. Mostly, we passed all the metal. We did the alternative rock and sort of post-grunge, and now we're getting in the weeds a little bit on a few more bands. So Creed. This is going to be ultra controversial. Creed is having a humongous moment the last couple of years since they reunited. I know they're cautious about making new music, but Creed could be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know, just like Nickelback, it would grind people's fucking gears. They just want to hate on this band for the Christianity or whatever. Creed's first 3 albums are full of bangers. They are doing so well commercially now, more than they ever did. I could absolutely see Creed getting in. I'm not a huge Creed fan, but I will say that I'm a huge fan of Mark Tremonti, and I like Scott as a solo artist. So I think Creed could very well likely get in the next few years. This is their 25th anniversary. They are eligible, I believe, this year they were eligible. Weezer, if we're talking about Creed, here's the other side of the coin. Weezer is either one of the best bands ever or one of the worst bands ever, depending on who you ask. Also similar to Sublime. I think Weezer's got like a very uneven catalog, but their highs are super fucking high. And all those like Pantone color albums, the blue, the red, the green. This is the teal press photo from their covers. They did like a season cycle thing in the last couple of years that I thought was super interesting, at least for a veteran band. They close every show with Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden. Already talked about how Maiden should be in. I don't know if Weezer is a Hall of Fame level band, but like if you just take the best, they might get in. They have some clunkers, and I like Pinkerton, which is the record that everybody's divided on in their early career. But like, there's a lot of, and Rivers Cuomo's lyrics are fucking dreadful, but so are the Chili Peppers, and they're in the Hall of Fame. So like, dreadful fucking lyrics. So is Kisses, and I love Kiss. This is pretty fucking interesting. So here we go. Now we're going to talk about, Melissa, it's your time to shine. Here's New Order, shot by my partner Omar at Riot Fest a while back. So New Order and Joy Division was on the docket this year as a potential, and they didn't get in. They absolutely should get in. I can see them getting in as a influence, and I feel like they should be in because they've influenced so many bands across so many genres. So many people cite Joy Division and New Order as a band. They absolutely kind of need to get in. Will they get in is a question, because I think the thing that people look at is record sales. Joy Division certainly didn't have a long enough career to have those record sales. But if you want to just consider New Order the second version of Joy Division, which it is in a way, I think they belong in. I think they belong in on their merit. I think they belong in. But, you know, it's hard to know. Other bands, so now we're talking about kind of danceable, avant-garde, post-punk, new wave, and industrial music metal bands, right? So here we go. This is an interesting little subset. Killing Joke. This is a photo I shot. I'm very proud of this photo. I shot this at Irving Plaza in 2018. I want Killing Joke to get in the Hall of Fame just so Jazz Coleman can just go fucking ham on the acceptance speech and just go stream of consciousness, batshit, insane, flat earth, Bilderbergs, fucking lizard people, like, you know, aliens. He's going to just go fucking nuts in front of a microphone. Joy Division, Killing Joke, just like Joy Division, super influential, ahead of their time. Come As You Are, absolutely ripped off 80s, but okay, fine. A lot of bands have ripped off a lot of things. I really feel like Killing Joke needs to be in, and especially because Geordie Walker died recently, and I think the band has a final album ready to go, and I think that just maybe it's going to come out and maybe it's not. They're signed to Spine Farm Records for one more album at least. I would love this farewell or final album to come out. I don't see the band coming back without Geordie, but tough. But I love this photo, and there's actually my correct photo mark, the Echoes in the Well photography that looks like the Black Sabbath Masters Reality thumbnail there. I love that thing. Guitar pick looking thing. I did a good job on this. I'm proud of this. Ministry. Ministry is calling it a career in the next couple of years. They're winding down their career with one final studio album on Cleopatra Records. Barker and Jorgensen ride again. I think Ministry over the long, like the first early influential, again, Killing Joke, Joy Division, Ministry would be the third band. The Cure is in there. They're already in. Cure crosses so many things, post-punk and alternative and goth, and Ministry absolutely, I think, needs to be in, and I would love to see it. And I think Al would also be like, I wouldn't want to put a microphone in front of him, depending on the day, in front of all those people in tuxedos and bullshit. but like it'd be kind of great to have him do it, and it'd be great for him to get in. It'd be a real fuck you to the establishment, even though that is the establishment, but it'd still be like a fuck you. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Now, Nine Inch Nails just got in a couple of years ago, and I can absolutely see the way it's going with their composing career, and especially this Tron Eras soundtrack. I can see Trent and Atticus just getting in the Hall of Fame as composers. I think in the future you will see composers, Hans Zimmer and people like John Williams, be invited into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because if you're going to put in rap and country and blues and jazz, you're going to put in anybody. And this music is actually really more the mainstream music than anything else Nine Inch Nails has done. If you just look at the success of the movies, they've worked on billions of dollars worth of movie soundtracks. I'd love to see Nine Inch Nails or Trent and Atticus do a Star Wars movie soundtrack. How cool would that be? Tales of Coruscant. Just a thought. I'm just putting it out there, everybody. I think it's possible someday. Now to talk about some punk. And I think this is hella interesting also, because I think, I think this is the one area that, maybe doesn't get completely well talked about. So here's sort of like the crossover of punk and also dance music is Devo. Devo has been eligible forever. They are criminally underrated. I know right now they're on tour with the B-52s and they're doing like amphitheaters and 10 to 15,000 seaters. And people are saying that maybe that B-52s have lost a step in terms of their energy and they're tuning down everything to be able to sing the way they used to. They're around for 50 years. Let me see where you're singing 50 years into your career. But Devo is still, I know that they've been kind of on a farewell tour for about 5 or 6 years or 7 years. Maybe it's an Akron versus Cleveland thing. I don't fucking know. But Devo should be in the Hall of Fame. Talking Heads are in, Blondie is in, Ramones are in, Devo punk, post-punk, alternative, new wave, everything, right? Danny Elfman and Oingo Boingo for composer and rock band. Yeah, maybe. I think Danny's got also, we're talking about, we got a sketchy artist coming up in one more second. Danny's a little sketch, but he is genius, right? He's a fucking genius. Speaking of sketchy, your next artist here on this list, and we're coming toward the end, Rammstein. So maybe too perverted, too sketchy, too much controversy, but like in 10 more years, when Rammstein has been around for 40 years and they're all retired by then, I'm sure they'll be done in the next few years, they have innovated, carried forth their influences in a new way, made countless great albums. They don't have a bad fucking record. Their live shows are unfucking believable. And I think Rammstein probably, if Nine Inch Nails is in and Ministry could get in, I don't know that there's a lot of other bands in that genre that should be in strictly. We were talking offline, Melissa, about KMFDM. I love them, and I'm, and the same with, I just think they're all a little too small. Lords of Acid, KMFDM, Decrypts, just a little too small comparatively to Rammstein and Nine Inch Nails and Ministry. But you're not wrong. Devo Doc may have helped them nominated 18, 21, 22, but nothing in 3 years. So fucked up. Devo, get them in. Now for some punks. Here's Misfits. John, you said Misfits. A bunch of people on TikTok said Misfits. I don't have I have photos of Danzig I have to use gingerly because he puts a copyright claim on everything. Even I just said it out loud. It's probably going to get fucked now. But Misfits, especially right now, I still feel like Danzig hates touring so much that he probably has not taken huge paydays to go to Europe by now. Anybody else that's not Danzig would have already been did a 50-date arena tour of Europe and just cashed in and cashed out and fucked off. But he hates touring so much that he can only bear to do this sporadically. I saw Danzig. Danzig as a solo artist would be inherently interesting. I think he's just not big enough, maybe as an influence. But I'd love to see Misfits get in. It would be really fitting for them to get in. They really are kind of the band the Hall of Fame should put in. Honestly, came from nowhere, made their own thing, did it better than anybody else, even with a million clones. So yeah, cheers to Danzig and the guys. I hope Misfits would get in someday. And then dancing to the back. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bikini Kill. Here you go, Melissa. Bikini Kill absolutely needs to be in. If you want your heart broken, watch the Bikini Kill Kathleen Hanna documentary. If you want to hurt your heart and your brain, read her book Rebel Girl. Bikini Kill. I still feel like Hole is a better band. I will always feel like Hole is a better band, but Bikini Kill is iconic and necessary, and they should have been in a long time ago. Technically, they were eligible 10 years ago, so what the fuck? 10 years ago? No, 10 years ago, this is like their 35th or 36th year as a band, even though they were broken up for a long time. So, I don't know. Should have been out already. Should have been in already. And also L7. And probably Bikini Kill would get in before L7 just because they're more popular. Bad Religion. Now we're really into the punks. This is one of my favorite photos, or my favorite show reviews of the year was by my partner Omar. This is where Bad Religion and Dropkick Murphys played on a rooftop overlooking New York City skyline in lower Manhattan with the Brooklyn Bridge and the skyline behind them. Insane. I love Bad Religion. I got to see them 3 years ago in a tiny club with 125 people. I still have the set list. Incredible. I had a great night. I bullshitted my way in and I got in for free. It was wild. Great band, tremendous discography, hugely inspirational, hugely influential. Epitaph Records is because of Bad Religion, all the things, even though Brett Gurwitz is not with the band anymore. Should be in by all rights. Suicidal Tendencies, a little bit of punk, a little bit of metal, right? Like a lot of people consider Suicidal a thrash band, but they really were a hardcore punk band for the first half of their career. They will have a new record next year. I do have several Bad Religions on vinyl, by the way. So, Suffer, in particular, is my favorite. But Suicidal, one of my favorites. I'm hugely biased, hugely inspirational, hugely influential. I know there's this element about them that was, banned from LA, gangs, this, that, the other thing, but like Ramones are in, Sex Pistols are in. If Bad Religion gets in, maybe Suicidal should be in between all the different things. Also, NoFX. It's also controversial. NoFX, much better than a lot of bands that came after them that copied them, including some other bands coming up on this list. I know that Mike is very controversial and would be also another guy I would love to just give him a microphone and have him come up to the mic and be like, penises, you know what I'm saying? Vaginas, hermaphrodites. He'd just go nuts with the sex talk and the horn talk. But like, NoFX is hugely important. They retired last year. Maybe they will come back at some point. I know Mike is working on his musicals and other things, and the Punk Rock Museum is just rules. Absolutely fucking rules. But yeah, I think NoFX eventually should get in the Hall of Fame, especially because other bands that came after them that copied them are already in. Green Day, Looking at You, even though I really like Green Day a lot. And speaking of bands that copied NoFX, literally tracing around the fucking outline of them, Blink-182. Not my favorite band, but obviously huge to a certain generation of fans, hugely important. I know Melissa hates them. You notice Rancid is not on here, and I do love Rancid. Social D is not on here. I know people love Social D and Mike, but Blink is probably going to get in the next few years. It seems like they've also been a little overlooked, but they are bound to get in. They're huge, hugely popular, and inspired a whole bunch of other really bad bands. So super interesting. Fishbone is a band that maybe they don't have the commercial popularity, but they absolutely have the chops, the albums, and the integrity. Despite the personal drama and strife of the band, Fishbone is an essential 90s and 2000s band. Their last album that's out now, I'm going to get to them in a second. Their last album that's out now, Stockholm Syndrome, that's out, and Omar interviewed Angelo Moore. Really fucking great. Love Fishbone. I love Fishbone, dude. And I know Q loves Fishbone. Oh, I lost one of my lights. All right. So Black Flag and Dead Kennedys. Dead Kennedys should have been in a long time ago. I don't have any really good photos of either Jello or the Dead Kennedys and whatever version of that band they're doing right now. And Black Flag, I just feel like Greg is just fucking shitting on his whole fucking legacy with whatever he's doing now. He's got every right to put the band out and do whatever he wants, but like, it just doesn't feel good listening. I watched some of those videos and I had to turn it off. I was like, this is a disgrace. I also think Rollins could theoretically get in as a musical influence as a solo artist between his sort of pop culture, like his sheer will and love of music to put music up on a pedestal as a public figure because of his Black Flag and Rollins band history. I feel like Rollins solo should definitely be in. You know, Black Flag deserves to get in. I know people are mixed on them and how good they are. But yeah, I think Rollins maybe culturally could deserve to get in. I also don't have any real good photos of Rollins I have permission to use. And that's an hour and 16 minutes. I only, 55 slides of these things. I didn't really realize how much we were going to go do this. But yeah, man, like, I love that Soundgarden is in. They deserve to be in. I'm sad that Chris is gone. Chains, Faith No More, Maiden, Dio solo, absolutely all need to be in. STP needs to be in. I feel like Pumpkins will get in. Hole should be in. Maybe never going to get in, but should be in. Bikini Kill should be in. And some of those bands, yeah, it is like we're hanging at the store, bro. That's I did my job. That's what I love to do. Talk about, for Blue Sky, my love of music. That's why I do what I do. Thank you so much for being here, John. You're the best. We do have a package coming your way from that Glacially Musical contest also soon. But yeah, we'll be back probably not tomorrow. We got a new band interview running tomorrow morning with Evoken. And then I will be back Thursday afternoon, evening with the Weekly Ritual, your one-stop shop for rock and metal news and concerts and metal festival news and all the drama and rumors of the week. Oh, yeah, man. I can't believe I missed that show. Fuck me. What a regret. I have some regrets. I've got a few, but still too few to mention. Thanks everybody for being here. Everybody on the Tick of the Talk. Everybody everywhere except Graham. The Graham did not work out too well today, except maybe at Ghost Called Keefe. I'll go check that out in a little bit. Yeah, Chris and Andy. Nobody sings like you anymore, for real, bro. And Lane too. Lane especially, actually. The Glacial Musical Podcast is doing our last episode on Alice in Chains tomorrow for now with the Alice in Chains Unplugged. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be out on Friday. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And appreciate you all. I'm Keefe. Have a good night. Be safe. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace and grease.